Welcome back to the Glint Standard. I'm Craig Lloyd. Today we have back with us Jamie Mendoza. And today we're going to be talking about the educational gap. So when you hear the educational gap, what does that mean to you?
I think it means the difference of what you experience in school and what you're actually going to experience in the workplace.
Like coming out of school?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much dead on what this is going to be about, right? One of the reasons that I think it's important that you join us for this podcast is to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
You've been out of
I'm
school
a little more
for
recent than you.
Barely. Now,
you can't tell.
My educational gap could come from something else completely different, but yours is there, right? So you've been out of school for a little while now, but I know you still remember what that was like being in school.
Absolutely.
Getting into the real world, having to what they call adulting now, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's not partying every day. It's I got to pay bills now. I've got to do this.
Super fun stuff.
Boy, I can't go on vacation because I got to buy a washer and dryer. You know, fun stuff like that, right?
Yep.
So when you were prepared to come out of school and get into the workforce, what were your expectations there? And then when you got there, what do you wish you had known that you don't know now, from more of an educational perspective?
A lot. Well, what I expected when I came out of school was basically to step into this new role and not know anything. I mean, I knew there was going to be some learning curve, but I didn't think it was going to be as big of a learning curve as it was. There's just, especially in my position here, there's a lot that they don't teach you in terms of how to talk to people the right way, or how to, soft skills are big, or I don't know, just.
So you know how to talk to people. We know that, right?
Right.
And we're here on this side going, okay, this could be a great person. Part of your role is sales, right? And business development. So we're going, okay, this person we know has great character, charismatic, is able to open up a conversation, carry a conversation. A lot of people don't have that. And some of that can be taught, but not always, right? So even with that, we know that's what you need to be successful in that arena. You still have to know how to do it into a business arena.
There still needs to be some shelf space on the educational background for that. So for example, when I first came to work with you, I didn't really know, and this is a lot of my peers, people who I graduated with, don't really know what they want to do. And I think this is part of the educational gap at my school, at OU. You say you want a degree in advertising or a degree in journalism, but there's a lot of things to do in advertising. There's a lot of positions that you could be in. There's strategy, there's business development, creative, digital. There's a lot that goes into it that you have no idea of. And then you get out into this real world and it's like, oh my God, there are so many different tracks I could have been put on that could have prepared me so much better that they didn't have.
Yeah, do you feel like there's also a lot from, even if you're going to go into, let's say, graphic design, or you're going to go into account management, that you're going to touch on a lot of different things, even in that realm, that even if you were taught in school about, we use account management for that, you still have to understand how it all works and comes together,
right? How
the team comes together, all of those pieces. Do you feel like they do a good job of at least explaining that and giving some surface level on it?
Not as much as they should, right? So I'll give an example. When you're a senior, and a lot of colleges do this, you get your overall big course, which is like your capstone, and it's basically for advertising, it's a huge campaign, right? You have your creative, and then you have your strategy, and then you have your research. And those are all components of what comes for a campaign, but like they don't teach you what you're doing to get this client. They don't teach you how to actually brainstorm and think on your own and think about these problems that you can solve. I mean, these people that they come in, they basically give you like, these are their challenges, this is what they want, deliver it. And it's usually heavy creative because that's what's
Right.
being taught the most.
So that verse, okay, you've got to go find the opportunity on the account side anyway.
That's
you have
a
to find
big-
the opportunity.
Right.
And when the opportunity gets here, you have to know how to manage that. You have to figure out, is the opportunity good? Should we be messing with it?
Right.
Then you have to manage that client through the process as well, because it never goes smooth.
Right.
It just doesn't.
Right.
And not that there are big challenges, but it could be a simple communication challenge of a client's not going to get back to you.
Right. Oh yeah.
And you need them back with you, and you've experienced it, right?
Right.
I need an answer from them tomorrow.
Right.
That should be enough time. 4 days goes by. What do you
Thinking
do?
on your feet is, as I said, soft skills, critical thinking. I mean, they say they teach that, but they don't. Thinking on your feet and knowing how to solve problems quickly is also a big one that they don't really stress. And it's a huge factor in any business.
You think that has anything to, I'm going to segue just a hair on the confidence side of things, right? Because a lot of people get out of school and they're confident, they're ready to go. And then you come in and you have all these challenges, right? And you get kicked in the teeth a lot. And for most people, it's the first time they're really getting kicked in the teeth.
Right.
To, now what do I do? Right? Because it's a job now.
Right.
And you
You're
have to
getting
be
paid.
able to, yeah, you're getting paid. Now you have to figure out, how do I overcome this, right? And that, if you've never dealt with that kind of, I don't even know what the right word is for it, that type of directness of, you got to step it up, here's how it is, you got to get moving type of
Right.
thing, and you feel like you're failing all the time. Although the people delivering that would be someone like myself, we're seeing, okay, growth in that area. You're probably not feeling growth in that area. And it can
Right.
cause a lot of people to shut down and just be completely finished.
Right. I would have to agree. It's hard to understand your pathway and how much you're growing when you're new and you don't necessarily know as much as you thought you did in college or you thought you did going in. I mean, I consider myself a pretty confident person. I'm pretty.
I'll agree with that.
Thank you. I'm 100% positive in the decisions that I make. Granted, they might be the wrong ones, but I don't second guess.
Right.
And then when I got to the workplace and I got out of school, and now it's like I'm second guessing myself all the time, and it's hard. It is.
And it takes time to overcome that. You just have to realize that that's there, and it's not weird. I mean, everybody goes through it, and some can't get through it. And part of that leadership is trying to help people get through that, knowing that's going to be there. So sometimes we just overlook it too, not remembering what that feels like, knowing you're going to be fine. But
Right.
here we go.
Right. Well, what do you think the educational gap is?
I think that's a big piece of it. I think the other sides, some of the things that don't come out of it would be how fast you need to be able to move, how fast you need to get things completed, how fast you need to get answers, because often you're relying on 5 or 6 different touch points. Could be people, could be vendor partners, could be the client, whatever it is, through every stage of everything you're doing. Once you don't get something efficiently, it slows the entire thing down, and then people get busy on other things, and it just becomes a mess. That's the number one challenge, is how to move things forward. You have to learn how to do that.
Management.
It's management, but it's easy to move it forward if everything is in place and everybody does what they're supposed to do, right?
Right.
People aren't screwing this stuff up on purpose. Nobody in their right mind does that. But when you get one thing on your plate, it's easy. Get 2.
Yeah.
Add 4. Now you got 6. They're not all big. Could be, if you're thinking about a plate, there's a steak, some mashed potatoes, there's 4 peas. The peas aren't that big, and you can get rid of the problem quickly, right? But you're so focused on those mashed potatoes, you can't get to the peas, right? And it's that kind of thing, but it all needs to move forward, right? And it's not so much about you having to do all the work either. It's about being able to get the people who can help on board, to get them helping, so you can get that solved and move on to the next piece that you need to do with it, right? And that's managing that process. The other another aspect of that could be, are you self-driven? Can you drive yourself?
Can they really teach that in school, though? I feel like that's a personal.
It is a personal trait, right? But it's kind of like confidence. You have that, and you are driven and you have an amazing work ethic, right? And then you get in the real world, all that gets dinged.
That is true.
Because now you're up against the same thing, and we know what it takes to get it done and what is required, and everybody's going, had no idea. I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I want to do this now, right? And a lot of people say, I'm out. Or they're here for 2 or 3 years and then they're out, right, within this industry. It's a really difficult industry to stick with because it wears on you after a while. So you got to have that type of balance. So thinking through that though, and say you have really, really good skill sets, soft skills, you've learned, if you're a designer, you've learned the programs really, really well, but you didn't go to college. Do you feel like you need to go to school?
No. I mean, school is beneficial, and it's good to experience perspectives and learn outside of, say, your degree. I mean, I used to say, I thought, what are they called? Not core courses, but your required courses like math, English, stuff like that. Like, I knew I wanted to be journalism when I came to school, and so I was like, why am I taking economics? Like, I don't need this. But or like Native American history, I took that as one of my US civs or whatever, and it was super insightful. I didn't think I needed it, and like, I don't know how I'll put that information to use in the future, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about this country. So learning different perspectives and how to navigate through culture and all that is good, but you don't necessarily need that to be successful in the workplace, because as you said, a lot of things that is needed for what it takes to succeed are personal traits like confidence and drive and your goals and aspirations. And
okay, so if there were a class called I'm going to kick you in the teeth, and it's about knocking that stuff down and challenging that, would you take that class?
Probably not.
Probably not, right?
No.
But it would have been great if you did, right?
Right.
How do you convince that? I mean, how do you make that a real thing?
You make it the psychology of a person, okay. or critical thinking in this, whatever major you are.
Right.
It doesn't have to be negative, but it could teach you the psychology behind why people make decisions, you know, why you don't think you're doing a good job when you are, that kind of stuff.
Right. So I think another key element that I see coming out too is also listening. And when I say listening, it's just not hearing, right? It's about listening to really try to understand what you're trying to do, right? And that piece of it. And there's often a, got it, yep, off I go, right? And off I go also means working alone sometimes. And schools don't typically come off of that working alone environment. Everything's with a team. So when you get into our world, there's a team aspect of coming up with ideas and strategies and just the big picture, right? And the overall theme, what are we doing? You know, let's brainstorm it together. But then you have to be able to step away on your own and deliver your part to whoever's managing that so that they can take and bring it all together, right? And that is often, I think, missed as well. I mean, do you agree or?
Yeah, it's hard to teach that because, again, that's also personal. Like, not a lot of people want to actually understand. Not a lot of people want to learn. I would take this back to college or not take this back to college, but compare this back to how they teach in college versus how, say, you teach. The way you teach is...
Careful.
The way you teach is terrible. No, I'm just kidding. The way
I can agree with that a little bit.
No, but honestly, the way you go about presenting information and like you're saying, this is what you have to know because of this. This is going to help you in this way or vice versa. You give us the why, but for school, it's like, here's your piece of information. You're going to take a test on it in 3 weeks, and then after that, you don't need it. So that's kind of how it's different and why people don't actually listen to understand and listen for a reason is because they don't need to in college. And then they get out in the real world and it's like, oh my God, that was actually so helpful I should have written that down or whatever, because now a year later it's coming back up and I didn't even think about it. So I agree. I mean, people, I don't know if that's a trait that can be taught, but y'all are doing a good job of teaching me that trait. So.
That's good. That's good. Well, the other side of that too is understanding assumption then, right? Because we are constantly talking to each other about what needs to be done. I talk really fast. I get in there. This is what needs to be done, and I'm out. Do you get it? We're all good? Yep, and I'm gone, right? And for me, part of that's slowing down a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's where I am, and the fast pace of this business requires that, right? And assumption can be really dangerous at times, right? You can assume, oh, I know what said, I know what you need.
You know what they say.
Yes, absolutely. And it's done both. Do you feel like there's a way to work through that a little bit? Or is that just better listening skills, or just being bold enough to say, hey, I get where you're going, I think, but I'm not sure. I need to talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. Or does that feel like a failure? Do you feel like it's, well, I should know, so I just got to go figure it out? And sometimes that is the answer.
Question.
You know, but how do you work through that? It just life experience, working. I
have no idea. I'm still trying to work through that. I would say, I don't know if it makes you feel like a failure to have to ask these questions. I think it's situational. I think it depends on what you're trying to tell me, and is it really black and white, or is it kind of gray?
Right.
So I think it's just situational, and you also can't expect someone to think how you think, regardless of if you consider what you just said.
I would say challenge number one is that from leadership. I think that is challenge number one.
I would agree. It's challenging across all aspects of the board.
Right.
Just because not everyone is going to understand it how you understand it. Let's take math, for example, for me. You can look at something and look at the numbers and be like, that's wrong, that's right, go ahead. And I'm sitting there like, how did you even get that? I don't think there's a way around someone teaching black and white or someone understanding it black and white and then wanting them to make assumptions. I think that just comes with the territory.
All right. Well, I don't disagree. I think everybody's like that. But let's talk about then, how do you overcome the educational gap? Is there a way? What do you think steps can be taken to overcome that?
I think schools definitely need to branch out from the here's your information, this is going to be your test, that kind of system. I think what they're doing at I've only gone to one college, so I can't speak on any other school, but I mean, how they do capstone and stuff and how they teach that aspect is really awesome, but that happens your last semester. I mean,
at the
very end. You need to be taught that the entire way through. You need to be taught all aspects of the business, whether I'd say a big issue in school right now is just the fact that they teach you these concepts of say marketing or advertising or even computer science. They teach you aspects on how to do it, but they don't really teach you how to put it all together and think critically and problem solve as a whole component until the very last second, and then you're thrown to the wolves in the workplace, and it's like, oh dear. So I'd say maybe branching out from the system is how you veer away from that educational gap, but also experience. Experience is probably the most effective way to get around that, and internships, stuff like that.
Okay.
How do you think we should get away from it?
So I think part of it is you have to understand you can never stop learning, right? Even when you graduate, if you don't have a job right away, keep learning. This is the craft you want to do. Keep learning how to do it. Things change all the time. If you're an electrician, you've got to keep learning how to do it. New things will come along.
Right.
The other thing to really think about is to fail upward. And think about that. Expect to fail because you're going to. Don't say, I should fail, so I'm not going to try hard, right? Expect to fail. Even when you think you've done your best, expect it to be wrong. And if it is, learn from that and don't keep repeating the same pattern, right?
So experience.
Experience is part of it, right? But at the end of the day, you can do something, okay, we're not going to do it like that. I get why you did it. Thank you for explaining that. Here's why we're going to do it this way.
Okay.
something like that, if you go back and do it your way again, that's just being stubborn and unwilling to change, right? That's not going to end well. And if you continue to do that, well, it's a job. You're getting paid to be here, right? You don't have a job anymore. I mean, that's just kind of the world you're in now, right? It's not, I'll go back and take the class again, right? It's not as big of a concern, right? And the other thing is to really don't ignore what's being said, right? There are a lot of times, a lot of conversations that you'll have that, okay, that's not important to me, Trell. Okay, whatever, I'm moving on. It's a rant, it's a whatever, right? You have to really listen, right? To why is it being said that way in this context?
Read between the lines.
You got to read between the lines, right? And you'll start to move forward that way. So, thanks for joining us. I always enjoy your insights.
Oh, thank you so much.
They're very different than mine at times. Sometimes they align really, really well.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. I am your employee, so that's always good.
That is true. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about what we believe the educational gap is and how we can possibly help you overcome some of that, prepare you, or if you have thoughts on where you think education is failing a little bit, this doesn't necessarily have to do with school, just education in general with a job, with a skill set, anything. Drop us a line at agency@theglintstandard.com. We'd love to look at those and give you our thoughts on it. Thanks for joining us.